Before we understand what a meteor shower is, we have to understand there's two different types. We have a sporadic meteor shower, which is caused by what we have here. This is supposed to replicate or resemble an asteroid. You see that it's not perfectly spherical. That's because the gravitational pull isn't that. These are actually, depending on the size, will be minor planets. They rotate on their axis just like our planet does. They also orbit the sun. These are composed of rock and metallic substances. Sometimes they're organic in nature. They reside, like Keegan was saying, in the asteroid belt, which is between the orbit of Mars and Jupiter. And usually they don't get closer than 100 million miles from Earth, so they will pass. Go ahead.
Minor planets got me. You said this is a minor planet?
Yeah, asteroids can be minor planets, depending on their size.
They're not even counting, what is it, Pluto anymore.
Well, Pluto is actually a minor planet. But if we call Pluto a planet, and like a regular one, we'd have to incorporate 200 other bodies.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry for interrupting, but I'm listening.
I'll be explaining that, what you're talking about, when I do my section of it.
Minor planet got me.
Now, like I was saying, these usually don't get within 200 million or 100 million miles from Earth, but their path they take around our sun will sometimes go over the path that the Earth takes around the sun, so they'll cross our orbit. And when they do, when we get two asteroids hitting each other, we'll have a cosmic collision, and bits of each asteroid will remain there. So when our Earth passes through the orbit of the asteroid, we'll get a sporadic meteor shower. Those are the ones that aren't planned, and usually NASA doesn't know about it until a few days before it actually happens, if that at all, just because we don't have a lot of satellites in outer space observing these types of collisions. Now, the annual meteor showers that we get each year, the ones in October, November, and December, those are annual, like you say, and they originate from comets. So I believe this gentleman right here is holding what is supposed to resemble a comet. They're smaller than asteroids. They're composed of dust, rocks, ice, and frozen gases such as methane. The ice comes from the fact that these things are originating from the far depths of space. They are orbiting around the sun, just like asteroids and our planet. When the comets get close to the sun's rays will actually melt off the ice particles that are around the comet itself. So contrary to popular belief, these comets actually are not on fire. What we're seeing is just the ice particles melting off. That's because of the sun's charged particles. Go ahead.
Sorry, like a snowball, you think this is like an ice ball?
It's kind of like accurate rock.
It's a dirty snowball.
Okay, that's what I'm trying to listen to.
And that's, I'll show you, actually I'll show you that one. I'll give you wait for it.
Okay. I don't mean to interrupt, but
no, you're fine. Questions are welcome.
You said at the end, but they're here now.
No, it's okay. Now, a comet is orbiting the sun just like our planet is doing. So as I was saying, as the comet gets close enough to the sun, the ice is going to melt off, and the sun or the comet's gravitational pull will pull these particles along behind it. So that's where you see the tail that comes around. Keegan actually made a comet here yesterday. So if you were holding it up to a heat.
Yeah, we tried this earlier on today, and the issue was that we could not find a heat source that we could bring to show all of you. We were using the fluorescent lights on the other side of the building that are closer. But what this has in it is composed of what we call volatiles. And volatiles are the cold frozen gases. Methane is frozen, then we have things like ammonia in there. But the dry ice is what's important. And so when you hold this up to a heat source, it goes through a process called sublimation. And that's just a big fancy word that means that it's going from a solid to a gas. And that's what you get the tail of a comet from.
Another question. I know where methane comes down on Earth. I know where we get methane from. Cows know, right? Where would you get methane from outer space?
Oh, no, that's actually a more complex question, and that actually goes into stars, because methane and other compounds like that are combinations of different elements, and the elements are formed inside of stars. That is a very complicated subject, but if you want, after we give this, I will explain the process of element formation for you. It's rather cool, actually.
I can take that too. Alright, as I was saying, so when the comet gets close enough to the sun, the ice particles will burn off, and it will be pulled along in a tail. That's where we get the tail shape, from the gravitational pull of the comet itself. These particles, I have them right here. They can be anywhere from the size of bits of sand to chunks of it, and these are called meteoroids. As the comet goes around the sun, you're going to have an illuminated path for a period of time. But eventually, as the comet continues to go around the sun back to its original place, the particles will remain on the path, marking it essentially. So what happens is the Earth's orbit will cross this trail, and the pieces of the meteoroids won't disappear because there's no wind in outer space, and there's no significant gravitational field to settle these particles like dust would settle on the surface of the Earth. So what happens is when Earth crosses this trail, right here we have a diagram of the different types of atmosphere that we have on the planet. They're going to enter our atmosphere at very high velocities.
Fast.
Very fast, yes. There's gas surrounding these meteoroids and gas in the Earth's atmosphere, I apologize. They're going to be compressed, which means that all this material is going to come together really quickly. In chemistry, when you guys are older, you're going to learn that when things compress, the temperature around it will increase. So the higher the compression, the higher the temperature. The meteoroids are going to actually burn up in our atmosphere, as well as because of friction. If you guys rub your hands together really fast, it gets really hot, correct? You rub really, really fast. That's what's happening to our meteoroids. So when the meteoroids set on fire, this is when we get meteors. If you see right here, these are just meteoroids burning up in the atmosphere. So you guys are probably wondering what happens if a meteor hits the Earth, right? Does anybody know? Go ahead. It burns a hole in the ground, but sometimes if we're lucky, we get bits of rock that are left over from the actual meteoroids. This isn't a meteorite, but it kind of looks like one. If you would be lucky enough to find it, you can pass it around.
It's also pretty close to the size you would find because, as she said, as it comes into the atmosphere, most of the material will burn away. But on most cases, you will get some meteorites that hit the ground and stay there.
Well, how do you know that's a meteorite?
Oh, it's
That's
not
not.
a meteorite. That's what it was looked
That's
like.
Okay,
a
but I'm
size,
saying,
yeah.
how would I know that's a meteorite if I passed it?
The various chemicals that when they would study it.
I wouldn't know, in other words.
Yeah.
Well,
You
yeah,
wouldn't know.
you
You could walk past a meteorite and have no
Okay.
idea. But that has to be lab tested.
They have, there's two different types of meteorites. You have falls and you have fines. People that are viewing meteor showers will sometimes trace the path that the meteor travels, and you can sometimes see it if you're close enough to the location where it hits the Earth. You can see where it hits the ground, and that would be a fall if you would come across it. Now, if you're randomly like hiking through the woods and you find this really unique stone and you bring it to a geologist or a scientist that's familiar with space and they study it,
Martian egg.
well, yeah, they would find that that is a find. So basically, falls are the ones that you actually watch crash into the Earth's atmosphere and then land on the planet, and then finds would be anything that you just stumbled upon.
Is that a piece of coal or hole?
Yeah.
It looks like andesite.
Yeah. But that is actually, if you were to look up meteorites like on Google or whatever, that would be what they resemble.
So would there be diamonds in outer space? I mean,
Again, that goes back in the stars.
I'm sorry.
And the questions are reasonable.
I'm shy. What's going on?
I will definitely talk with you after this
Okay.
about some of that. So save your questions on that.
So basically, when a comet passes and the Earth passes through the trajectory or the path that the comet takes, we hit all these remnant meteoroids, these big rocks that we have right here. When they burn up in the atmosphere, many at a time, that's what we call a meteor shower. So basically, now that we know the difference between asteroids and comets, and there's two different types, which again are sporadic meteor showers, which result from cosmic collisions between asteroids, and then the annual meteor showers due to the annual orbital path of a comet. Keegan's going to take over and explain where these comets come from.